Is it mine? Yes.
No, that's my one.
That's gracious.
Sharing.
The quarantine is getting to us. The tension is brewing.
Currently, I'm running late.
But we got extra guitar time, which is very lovely.
It's what, 5:01, 5:02?
But yeah, just outrageously delayed. Going 2 minutes over time is something Joe is rare to do, but when it happens, it's always magnificent.
Is that a sexual joke?
No, it's a debating timing joke.
Oh, okay. Oh, right.
Yeah, so we're on a debating live stream, so I thought we'd chat debating, not Joe's sex life. Anyway, welcome back, everyone. I know it has been a 2-episode hiatus. No, I'm sorry, only a 1-episode hiatus. Didn't have a show on Saturday. We were doing something else. It was very time-consuming, but we got it done. How are people feeling about quarantine? How are your weekends?
My weekend was good. Didn't get up too much.
No,
Yeah.
neither.
It's good.
I put a shirt on for the first time in a hell of a long time. It's quite nice. Most people who know me will know I quite like putting a collared shirt on. I thought I'd dress up for everyone this evening.
Yes,
That's
very nice.
Yeah.
He looks lovely. He was earlier wearing a jersey. That also looked very nice, but this is great. Obviously, we had Cinnamon Scroll over the weekend, which was exhausting. So I think Grace and I have been just relaxing the last few days. You've been playing some of your...
I've been playing Planet Zoo, which I really recommend. It's made by the people who made Planet Coaster, but also Zoo Tycoon. So it's like you manage a zoo, and I played, 10, 11 hours of that since the weekend.
I mean, objectively, we should ban zoos, but if you'd like to engage in it
I
digitally,
think we should
go.
ban zoos.
But this house would ban zoos.
But do you actually, is that your personal belief?
No, I remember it being said when I was still in high school by some particularly cruel coaches, and I just don't think there's much in it as a debate. I don't understand the hype.
It's great, but we set up for a Tiger Schools final a couple of years ago. Fantastic final. Bridget was great in the final. Shout out to Bridget. Sabrina was great in the final. Shout out to Sabrina.
Shout out to Bridget and shout out to Sabrina. So obviously today we're going to be continuing our discussion on case construction, mainly because we had a lot of engagement and buy-in on that particular topic. So we're really hoping that you continue to engage. Joe will be receiving messages. Joe, do you have your phone?
And when we say we got a lot of engagement, we mean Jack made a meme about us.
Oh, that was very funny.
That's the only metric. We've been holding out for that for episodes.
And it was like, it was a big joke, and the flat found it really funny, except for Grace.
I said.
I thought it was hilarious. But just to know, we have trademarked noise from the bench, so any jokes at our expense will be charged out. So
we should do that.
Reminder: how to call in. Flick a message to Auckland DevSoc. If you're from Australia, make sure that you use the +61 version and you leave out your state code. Don't be afraid of being a repeat caller. We love having people call in to chat, and of course, you can always leave us a comment. Or you can use the Google form.
While we're not on debating things, just for a moment, Daniel's made an offer to me to cut my hair. I'm leaning towards accepting. So I need viewers to answer two questions. One, whether I should trust Daniel with my hair, the limited amount that still remains. And two, what he should do with it. Yeah, I'm interested in your views. So if you think I should do something different, get my hair cut in a wacky new way, let us know in the comment section.
So hilariously, I have actually, well, so firstly, I cut my own hair, but I have actually cut another member of New Zealand Debating's hair before in the upstairs bathroom, where I presumably will also cut Joe's hair. So props if you can guess who that person is, who is also brave enough to trust me. The last thing I'll say is we're still running the feedback form. We're very interested in your feedback, but we've expanded it a little bit because we also want to know who you think we should have as guests or what topics we should discuss. Because obviously there's a huge amount of things to chat about, but we have limited creativity and limited effort, and we'd love you to do some of our job for us.
Please share your brain cells.
Yeah. Please share your
few.
Yeah. Okay. Last thing to do before jumping into discussion, just once again, a little bit of news. First thing to say is Cinnamon Scroll went very well, and online debating is great. Like, I really enjoy it. So if you are keen, go to some more online tournaments, donate money to New Zealand online debating platforms.
Speaking of which,
yes.
There will be an announcement later this evening
Very
with
excited.
respect to some online debating coming up in the near future.
So if you are watching this stream and you have friends who'd be interested in a very particular, unique, a very interesting bit of announcement happening at the end of the show, I'd encourage them to tune in for that.
There'll be an event going up probably around 6:30. We'll be posting New Zealand University's debating group, so keep an eye on that.
Very interesting. Second thing to note is we will still be running the Thursday development seminars, and we're going to be giving you a little bit of a different perspective from the one that's coming up. We're going to do a how to judge session. Obviously, a lot of people are very sick of judging, but hopefully the people who tune in want to learn more about judging, want to become better judges, and by becoming a better judge, you also tend to become a better debater, in my opinion. The second thing to note is that Clubs Night is not on for the next 2 weeks because we're on our university break, but obviously keep engaged with University of Auckland Debating online, and you will be able to obviously just plug yourself back in when we come back for the next semester. We have our Auckland Novice Tournament on the 26th of Auckland. I think there's still some speaker spots. So if you're keen, let us know. Equally, always looking for judges, trying to make sure that that tournament is just as successful as Cinnamon Scroll. Equally, just keep abreast with all of the University of Auckland debating events, especially the women's development. I think we're looking to announce some new women's development programs going forward. Last thing to note is, once again, the Aotearoa Online Schools Debating is still ongoing and is incredible for the students who get a chance to not think about being locked in quarantine with their families. Like, just like nightmarish. So if you are keen to help out with that, I know they're always looking for more judges, more people to share the load. So flick a message to Zach or look at the New Zealand University Facebook page.
And it takes up surprisingly little time because you don't have to go anywhere to do it. You don't have to sit through the prep.
Yeah.
Pretty cruisy.
And also just like, a lot of the time, your internet will be able to handle it. Like, our internet, I remember during every debate, but also during a break round, I remember sitting over there on our table. Grace was sitting across from me, judging another out round, and then Joe, I think, was downstairs judging it. So our internet just did phenomenally over Cinnamon Scroll.
Our bandwidth worked very hard.
So shout out to Slingshot. You should you should sponsor us. We are giving you enormous amounts of kudos to a whole world of people who have very high internet.
We've had an
internet needs.
anonymous question.
Amazing.
Grace.
So we start off with that.
Hi Grace, I tried using frozen peas for the duck which comes into my backyard. He liked it a little but wouldn't eat it out of my hand. Sad face. How can I gain his trust and keep him as a pet?
I think it just takes time. It's like, if he gets used to the peas, that's good. Bring the peas every day at a regular time. Luckily, peas are a distinctive colour. So regular time every day, the peas are in a dish, and then you get closer and closer to the dish every day over a few weeks. And soon, you're next to the dish, and then maybe you're holding the dish, and then the dish is on your hands. Patience is key. They're very cunning birds. You have to earn the trust slowly.
Well,
Yeah.
thanks Grace.
I'm really glad the pea and duck discussion wasn't about eating the duck, and was instead about feeding the duck.
Well, presumably that's what happens once you get as a
You
pet.
fatten it up, and then you betray
roast
it
duck
and
and
eat
you
it.
have in little like pancakes with like oyster sauce and like shallots.
Though also, I don't know, like, I think peas are good, but sometimes, like, buying some bird seeds better.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think Joe and I are respectively winning angles of the culture war in that I'm a vegetarian, but I've told him I will eat bivalves with him, so like oysters and clams, and he's very excited about that. And in exchange, well, firstly, he's eating a lot more vegetarian stuff, so I'm just taking that as a win. But he might eat some insects with me because I'm an insect fan, and if I will eat your disgusting like slimy shelled creatures, basically plants, you can eat some
You
insects.
guys can't do that in the flat, I think. I think that's too yucky.
Should we talk about some debating?
Yes. So let's start off with a fairly general question. What is the favorite case you have run or you have seen run over the years? And what made it distinctive for you? And we can go VP or Nostrils or any tournaments that you've been in. Equally a disastrous one, if you want to share that.
I like invading countries because I'm an neocon. So my favourite debate was like owning the libs by invading the Middle East to protect their art in their Easter's final. That was ace because like what a better way, like there's no better way to own the libs by being like, we're going to protect the really culturally important art these minority groups experiencing a genocide by putting American boots on the ground. There's no better way to own the libs.
Yes. The libs are also upset about wars on oil, though. You?
So, a case I really liked is one, and I'm sure there's many, but the one that really is in my mind is so satisfying. Is, like, the Sydney thing where they're able to come up with so many mechanisms that you're just like, I can't respond to all of these. As Connor and I built a case like that in one of our in-rounds at Worlds. I can't remember who against. But we had this debate about whether or not the Mexican government should cede control to the cartels.
Yeah.
What was the wording?
So it was that it would allow one cartel to create a monopoly within drug production.
Crack down on all the other cartels but one to get a cartel monopoly. And we were and we just had the most like so many mechanisms. We were like, here's
It was a
why.
very great op debate. We were all over that.
It's like it's going to lead to violence, and then we had like 9 mechanisms in that first point.
Nice.
It was just really good. It was good. It went well. We got it first. It was good.
Yeah.
Emily and I had a really good debate in a breakdown at Sydney Mini a few years ago, and we wrecked some teams. Trying to remember the exact notion. It was around former colonial powers favouring migrants from their former colonial states, and we kind of fucked with the other teams by talking about how that was the most politically acceptable form of migration, and that it was politically favourable to alt-right political classes who would view it as a modern form of colonialism, and it was acceptable to left-wing groups because they liked progressive immigration schemes. So we're just like, this is the best way to have progressive immigration in the least politically confrontational way.
Nice. I think an interesting thing you might note from all of the answers that you get is often it's BP extensions, which end up being people's favorite cases. And I think one of the great values of BP debating is the chance to run extensions and be incredibly creative and try things out. Whereas Australs can tend to be a lot narrower, figuring out narrow path to victory, honing it, winning.
I do have a favorite second substantive.
Which is basically the case with Graces in a team.
Is that your joint final, Grace?
Yes, I think that's one of the best second
Yeah,
substantives
slapped,
I've ever
it's
run.
slapped.
Yeah, it was very different. It's like normally for second substantive, you try and like win along the same lines as your main case, and I was like, no, it's a different whole thing, and this is why another reason I think we should win. And I've never actually spoken to any of the judges about it, how much it factored into
It was pretty
their-
good. It was pretty good.
Yeah,
I wasn't
you
a
went-
judge.
you went
I was just
judging.
sitting at the back of the room.
So I don't know if I actually helped us win, but it's like I really enjoyed writing it and getting it.
I think that pegs on very neatly to the next question I want to ask.
Ooh,
And that is whether you, as a team, prefer to run narrow cases or to run broad, expansive cases. What's your approach to finding that balance? And I specifically, firstly, want to get your opinion on just second substantives as a thing, because it becomes somewhat of a trademark of your debating style to have really well-developed, effective second substantive points.
mine.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
You've
great.
definitely, I think, and it's one thing that frustrates me enormously about debating against you, is that the debate will happen at first, and then I'll be like, aha, we're on top of the debate at first. And then Grace will be like, no, here is more. And then you have to fix the more bit as well. So explain to us your approach to running second substantives. How do you come up with them? How do you make them?
Can I compliment Grace for a moment?
Of course you can.
I don't deserve it, but feel free anyway.
I think one of the reasons that Grace has been able to run effective second substantives is because she times the rest of her speech well, in the sense that it doesn't become a problem whereby her rebuttal gets sacrificed too heavily to run the second substantive, or that she spends too much time in her rebuttal and the second substantive becomes too late to matter. I think one of the reasons you become really effective is because you push through your rebuttal quickly and aggressively and nail down the major responses, like, as soon as goddamn possible, to make sure you can get to your second substantive.
Yeah.
I think timing is a massive...
In that joint final, I think I'd started my second substantive before 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is always something.
But crucially, the rebuttal hadn't been light. You just hammered them, right?
Yeah, neat.
Yeah, the thing is, if you have consistent problems with your timing at second, then there's no point building a good second substantive because you're not going to cover it.
Yeah.
You can do something in 90 seconds a lot of the time, but you can really do something well. If you don't have the timing and control to allow yourself time, there's just no point. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I mean, you should still do it because you should try and get to that. You're just never going to get there.
And word efficiency, I think, it comes down to a lot. You're a very efficient debater, I feel.
I agree.
I think only recently. It's like the thing that you realise as you get more confident is that you can actually say, bless you, quite a lot in very few words, and I'm still trying to get the hang of that.
Yeah, I think that's something we both identified.
We've had a question here.
Yeah.
And it says, not about case construction, but who are your favourite debaters to watch speak? Sorry if this has already been asked.
Oh, we talked about this in the style episode. And so what I'm going to do is rephrase it a little bit. So we can recap who we find very entertaining. But then I think there's also a group of people who you may not enjoy the way they debate, but you enormously admire the strategic element behind it and how it's done. And I'll actually start off. I really like listening to Joe debate. Not because necessarily I think his style is like Bose or like uniquely gorgeous, but he's very smart in the way that he structures his arguments and the simplicity of them and the simplicity of the responses. And I think that's something you've worked on enormously, hasn't it?
My debating was so different when I was younger. It's just so different.
There was a training montage.
Yeah. Except he was doing like words with his
I
mind.
used to just not really care about style or anything like that, whereas now I just explicitly lean into rhetoric really heavily, and the task is finding the emotional capturing that will win the room,
Yeah.
particularly in breakrounds. That's all that matters, unfortunately.
But having fun.
I didn't answer your second substantive question.
A little bit. We can circle back to it. Do you want to answer on the speaker first?
I like Ailey because I think that I often see debates quite differently to her. And so I always like hearing her speak because it always reveals so much to me. I think Ben Jackson is incredible.
It's about to mention that, yeah.
Yeah,
I love that.
'Cause
I actually love watching Beast.
We've judged him a few times, and what I'll note is in the semi-final and the final, I judged both of those back to back with Beej. What he does in his third speeches is his introduction is always here are our pathways to victory. And he does it in a very clean, crisp way that I think makes it so easy as an adjudicator to believe the stuff that follows, because he does that groundwork exceptionally well from a strategic level.
I think he captures a room and he says so much with so little.
I just want to make a point on Beach, which is that he's so goddamn down to earth when he speaks.
Yeah.
His cases,
not pretentious.
Well, but also, I mean, I don't want to go into the Sunwin Scroll final too much. One of the reasons I found his speech so persuasive in that final was because, for me, it just so effectively portrayed reality. It was not stuck up in these ivory towers notions of politics. He got into the nitty-gritty of politics in terms of talking about specific people and specific races and specific constituencies, which I think is just so much more compelling than academic theories of politics.
Yeah. I think actually it would be useful for people watching. If you were looking for something to watch, I'd watch some of the Cinnamon Scroll Out rounds, because I think, especially if you're a New Zealand-centric debater who does most of their debating in New Zealand, it'll introduce you to a very uniquely Australian way of approaching debating, and there's some smart things that were done in those debates. Even though I don't think the debate was exceptionally high quality, I think they got tied down into some more minor issues, some semantic issues. It was still, both teams were very much trying to working strategically in a way to shift the debate towards their areas, which I think Australians in general do very well. Other good speakers, I really like watching James and Imogen from University of Sydney. Imogen Harper in particular, strategically, the way she speaks, I think is phenomenal. But shall we pivot back to talking about second substantives? So I'll say my perspective. I very rarely run a second substantive as a separate point within my speech. When I speak second, I'm very careful to be this in the issues that I run in debates. I'll be this is what we said, the overall goal of the point, what we were trying to do at first. Here's how they responded, and then dealing with responses, then adding a layer of extension, so adding a new mechanism or a new something to change the debate.
I get typecast as a controversial one on the show because I am the controversial one. I think very few people can actually pull off a good second substantive, and I think in light of that, people need to be aware as to whether they can pull it off or not. And if they can't, they should just be honest with themselves and not try.
Which is interesting, because in schools debating, it's very much the convention of the role.
I know, but it's just 90% of the time, it just doesn't do anything. And the 10% of the time it does, it's probably not random. It's probably because that speaker understands what they're doing with their second substantive. I would encourage more people to not run second substantives if they're not confident. They don't know what they're doing with them.
Yeah, and also it's debate specific. So sometimes, and that's why I originally asked the question about whether narrow or broad cases are preferable. And I remember very strongly memories of James and Lucy from Auckland 1 who made it to the Australs final and then broke third Australs the following year. Their mantra when they were approaching Australs is narrow cases, ruthlessly defended until the end, and it worked very well for them.
I will fuck with that. Narrow, I would always take a narrow case over a broad case.
Yeah, which I think for me, and I take a relative, I don't know if I take it relatively, but and I think a lot of New Zealanders like having the key issues in the debate clear from the first speaker, and then fighting the debate within those boundaries, which I think is why I think in the last year, your style of doing second substantives has been quite revolutionary in New Zealand debating, in that it's forced a lot of people who are used to debating against very narrow cases to suddenly add another layer to the debate.
I don't want to... Do you want to talk on that? Do you mind if I just cut in on that? I think the reason why Grace's second substantives are compelling in that sense is because she is able to compellingly broaden the grounds of the debate. So I think where people trip up is they're just what about this other thing? But they are never able to compel us to care about that other thing.
Yeah.
So let's say, here's this other stakeholder, here's this other thing that we do. But why I think Grace has been effective is because she's able to make us emotionally care about that stakeholder. And if we then care about that group of people, then that then becomes an acceptable lens by which you can win the debate.
In an ideal world, you have a second substantive where you could lose the debate. And I mean, it doesn't happen because judges, I think, are biased whether or not they they will always decide the debate on the main clashes. But like in an ideal world, you could like concede or have a wash on the main clashes and also win by a second substantive.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen because of like the I think the judging preconceptions, but like ideally. And having said this though, I just have to refute what these two say. I run plenty of like shit second substantives. I fuck it up all the time. When I do it, even when I do it badly, the way that I always do my second substantives is, and I think this comes across as a little bit clinical and formulaic in first substantive points, but at the start of my second substantive point I go, and now into the second substantive, which is X. In this point I'm going to prove Y. The reason this matters in this debate is Z. And I try to make those the first two sentences of my second substantive, and it's a little bit of a crude way to weigh it, but the reality is you're often time pressured at the end, and if you, first of all, if you can answer those two questions, you've probably provided a useful second substantive. You have given a thing, this is what you're going to prove, this is why it matters, and will help you win the debate. So if you have answered those two questions, that's a good sign to you in the prep room that you're sorted. But also, if you're time pressured and you don't get through, and you don't have time to wait at the end, you've preemptively weighed.
Yeah, that's very useful, I think.
And also, the other team is then likely to hear it. If it's 6 minutes, or it's 6 minute 30, you say, I'm going to talk about this thing, and this is a way we can win the debate. That speaker has time to think about that and engage with you. The risk is if you give some random analysis, and then at 8 minutes 10, you're like, and this is why it helped us win the debate. The other speaker's not going to respond, and it's going to fall out.
Yeah.
So John has had a reckon. I'm interested to test this reckon out. Strong view, second speeches have to provide new material. If they do not, they will just deliver a third speech. Then we get to see whether the third speaker can do better given more time. If yes, your speaks suffer. If no, their speaks suffer. The job of second is to push the debate forward. It is easier to do that than to deliver a third speech at second. I want to make a brief comment on this. I think there is a way to make a substantive contribution to the debate at second without having a second substantive point.
Yeah.
Which is increasingly being acknowledged on the Australasian circuit in terms of how we judge Australs debates. Plenty of ways to do that, in my view. I think the easiest way is to flesh out the existing mechanisms and substantive material from first, and that means providing additional mechanisms to those points. Here are additional reasons why this happens or this is good, or recharacterizing those outcomes presented at first with different stakeholders, environments, circumstances.
Can I state the obvious here? Say that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Sometimes even if you're not doing it, just be like, okay, and on this issue we had this response from first staff, it's not true for these reasons. But furthermore, let's extend this point. Another reason this is going to happen, or let's extend this point by recharacterizing this brief. Like, use those wanky terms in your speech. So even if you're just fucking around, which you shouldn't, you should do it properly. But even if you are, and the judge is like, I think you should push it.
So I'm going to come in with a hot take. I've heard exactly the same wording about second speakers need to add something new to the debate. They need to propel the debate forward, or X, Y, Z. And I think it is just a normative judgment about what debating should look like. And I think it has fallen deeply out of favor overseas in the same way that role fulfillment has fallen to some degree out of favor when talking about BP. I do not think you need to broaden the scope of the debate. And I think if you're doing that at the cost of winning the issues at the core of the debate, you're making a prioritization choice, like I need to broaden the debate versus I need to win the things that have already been done, you are going to suffer as a team and you're going to lose. So I totally disagree with the idea that we should have a dogmatic role-based focus to what speakers should be doing. A second speaker needs to broaden the debate. Rather, the speaker should recognize where they can help win issues that are key to the judge, just like they do in any other debate. Sometimes that'll look like ruthlessly defending the same lines, and then your third speaker can ruthlessly defend them in the same way, and you can do the James, and Lucy approach, and you can, make a final of Australs and break third, or you can broaden the debate like Grace does. But I would very much push against the idea that a certain speaker's role is to do something. Their role is not to do anything in the debate, but to win the debate. And sometimes it falls into particular, like obviously at first you need to set up, obviously at third you need to close issues off. But as a second speaker, entirely driven by the context of the debate, not a role.
But otherwise it's just a yarn. Like there has to be, I do like formalized roles because it's like football doesn't work without rules. It's just kicking a ball around.
No.
Otherwise we're just having a yarn. So the conventions are a way to test.
Sorry, can I come in here somewhere in between? normatively, Daniel might be right, but the conventions inform the way judges assess debates. Because we've developed norms and systems of thinking which we view as acceptable, which then frame the way that we either exclude or include judges in their ability to, in New Zealand circuit, accredit and judge debates, or on the international circuit, break and judge out rounds. So even if Daniel's right to say maybe we should jettison certain norms in certain circumstances, I'd argue you shouldn't, because those norms exist for a reason and have been developed in the minds of judges as acceptable ways to judge debating.
So I think I'd say two things to that. The first is that I think it's normative in New Zealand, and I think we suffer overseas when we try and take that approach. So to some degree, you can trade off success in New Zealand with being punished overseas. I know Australian for a long time, their second speaker role is way less dogmatically tied to having like expansive points, and they operate a lot more like a traditional third speaker would. And then I think the second thing I'd say is I don't think norms necessarily exist for a reason sometimes. I think it's just because some people in debating have particularly set views about things. And yes, it's very true that then impacts how people judge. And maybe from a cynical perspective, I should give, and like, I'm sure that judges have punished me specifically in New Zealand for not running second substantive points. But people need to be the change that they want to see. And I think some judges use it as a crutch.
Okay, yes, but there are acceptable bounds for the Overton window. And the goal of successful high-quality speakers should be to twinge or push at the margins of those rules in that window, rather than to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
So I think that just depends on which speaker you are. And it'll be very different. Some speakers won't want to push the Overton window. They'll just want to be successful. Some speakers are more happy to sacrifice success. It's just, I think it's a very personal decision there.
I don't know. Like, we talked about replies, I think, last week or the week before. I think sometimes giving narrative replies can be extremely persuasive.
Replies,
just extremely, extremely persuasive. And I've done that a couple of times, and I think they've been pulled off. But, you know, you're bending the rules deliberately, and you're deliberately bending those rules in order to give that speech meaning.
Yeah.
I don't think the point should just be like, fuck the rules.
Oh, no, so what I'd push back on here is I'm not at all advocating like a fuck the rules or fuck the roles. I think sometimes like roles evolve for a reason. I would agree. So, for example, first speakers need to set up the debate clearly, give context and characterization. What I would push against from, though, is the idea that we do those things to fulfill roles in judges' minds, rather we do those things to help us win the debate. And I think we need to distinguish between those two things. There are some norms we have that are deeply unhelpful and hold us back as a circuit, some norms that we have that are very good and help us give better speeches, and then just be flexible in how we approach that and do innovation.
I do want to make a comment to some of the younger people watching this here, which is that the sorts of things that Daniel or Grace and I could get away with in a break round at a mini or an IV in order to deliberately subvert or suspend rules in an effort to be more persuasive in a gamble should not be adopted by younger speakers. I'm going to be... We might disagree here, but you should not be using your speeches as a battering ram to politically...
No, of course not. You can't, right? You'll be ignored. That is the sad thing.
Well, if you're young, certainly.
Yeah. So you have to get to a certain degree. But what I would say, and I actually love your opinions on this, I was very happy to experiment and innovate with my speeches in disastrous ways when I was younger. And I think that was good for my debating career. I don't think it taught me bad habits. I think it made me more flexible. So obviously you don't be like, I'm going to change debating by doing this thing slightly different to everyone else. But for your own speaking, I think trying out new things, trying a narrative reply, even if you lose, like you're a young debater. You should be having fun and trying things you think are cool.
Nah. Sorry. So like, isn't there this thing? I'm not a big art guy, but there's a thing in art where like, and music is certainly I know about music, so I'll talk about music a little bit. Is that you want to teach kids or young people learning music or whatever all of the rules and make sure that they can then master those rules and understand exactly structurally what they're doing
before they're improvising in New Orleans.
Exactly. Yeah. Before they're deliberately suspending and subverting those rules and norms for persuasive effect in debating, but artistic effect in music. So, which is why, of course, people receive classical training in music, and why some of the best jazz musicians ever are classically trained musicians who have mastered those rules first. So before to all the young guns out there, before some 19-year-old comes along and is like, I'm going to deliberately do this in my reply speech, sort out your fucking timing, speak a little bit slower, complete your analysis, and then we can talk about subverting things.
No, that's very true. I agree.
Okay, this got very esoteric.
That's right. That's right.
I'm just going to say, sorry, I think we should stop being esoteric, but I'm just going to say I do think second speakers need to provide new analysis and new material, otherwise the debate just devolves into weighing after a first clash. Yeah. I know, but you have to do way more a second, because at third it becomes a little bit less sportsmanlike. Okay, can I just say for second substantive, no one asked me, but I'm going to say it anyway. I can personally say I write mine in the room, I don't prep mine in advance.
So you write yours during the speech?
Chat.
Most of the time.
That's
Sometimes I prepare them in advance.
That's very based of Grace. I'll be honest.
I will say my joint final one I did in the prep room because I thought of it really early.
I think you have to, particularly with what you're doing, because you're oftentimes trying to deliberately broaden the debate, right? So the examples and the circumstances you need to use need to be at least somewhat contingent on what's turned up in the debate so far.
Yeah.
Or else it doesn't fire.
Like the other thing is, you know, when you go into a BP debate and you take, in your closing, I think most people do this, you prepare like multiple possible extensions and you just take that brainstorm in. I just do that a lot of the time. And then, or sometimes I don't even have that. Sometimes, honestly, a lot of the time I just wander in and I just see what I feel like doing. But what I would do if you're not sure is like take some ideas and then rule it out, because it may be that F in the debate is not very stakeholder focused, or F in the debate is really mechanistically light, and that's where you choose to exploit your weaknesses. But a lot of the time I just write mine on the bench in the speech prior.
I think that raises a very interesting question. What do you think is the difference between the ideal second substantive and an extension in BP? Do you think it's exactly the same thing?
No, don't be silly. Don't be silly.
I think that Dalmatians are just black and white cows. No, they're different.
Of course they are. Like, with a BP extension, you have to win the entire debate with that material alone.
And it's got to take up a whole speech.
But I think the crucial thing is that you have to, at closing, you need to be able to reframe the whole thing through your extension and be like, this is the shit. Nothing else matters. This is the most important thing. It's very rare that you will do that at second substantive, to be like, this is the most important material in the debate. Because that offers up a variety of questions for the substantive material that turns up at first, right? So it's how you... So are you saying that it's how you deliver it that is different? Or is it the actual ideas? I think in BP, you're running a hyper-narrow view of the world with a limited set of circumstances for a limited set of agents or stakeholders attempting to prove some benefit for them.
Mm-hmm.
In an Australs debate or a joint scroll debate, you are trying to, in my view, people might disagree, you're trying to win through a variety of different pathways, right? And your second substantive is not an exclusive pathway to victory, it's an additive pathway to victory. Whereas your extension is, and it should be, an exclusive pathway to victory that is not available to both the team that came before you and the teams on the other side of the bench.
I don't like in BP, sometimes you might be operating from the same set of goals as your opening, depending on the debate. But in a second substantive, you always are.
Yeah.
But Joe took your bait. I will refuse the debate and make the comment that both require creativity.
Yeah. So what I liked is you pointing out that often your approach to figuring out the ideas that become your second, and that was more the question I was asking. Okay, I do know that closing teams have to win. Like there's some basics that I was aware of. Daniel. I was aware of the Dalmatian cow distinction.
I just had to say that because I actually really like Dalmatians and I started thinking about them and I had to externalize that thought.
Yeah.
No, I know what you mean. You need the creativity and the like.
Okay, so we've discussed the obviously prepping an extension is quite different to prepping a second substantive. What do you think then broader differences between Austral's case preparation and BP case preparation is? Obviously, I think we can just take Joe's monologue from earlier about what you need to do with an extension as like I think a really good a basic idea about how case generation operates when you're a closing team. It's about totally changing the way people see the debate, trying to shift the debate in often quite dramatic ways. Let's talk about then the openings. How does prepping an opening BP debate?
The same.
Same as Australs?
The same as being a closing team. Sorry, I'm just going to riff off the thing I was talking about the other
start
day.
With this. I think this is equally fair comparison.
I think too often people get caught up in thinking about opening and closing teams doing fundamentally different things, and I don't think they should. I think more opening teams should consider themselves doing the same tasks as a closing team and just mirroring those same expectations. So think about all that effort you do at closing to explain why your material is so important and so different to everyone else. Fulfill that same goal and those same objectives, but absent the knowledge of what the teams later in the debate are actually going to run. I.e., you need to make sure you're relevant at the end of the debate. If you're irrelevant, you will come third or fourth. How can you make yourself relevant? Standing up at opening government being like, the biggest problem in this debate is these things. Is this thing for these reasons. 4 reasons why this is the most important material in the debate. Right? Now, some people will just implicitly do that at opening government being like, this debate is about X. The problem is that at opening, too often I see people not explaining why that material is the most important stuff in the debate in the style that a closing gov or closing op would do, and they then become irrelevant. So if you're running an opening, just put yourself in the mindset if you're running an extension but you happen to be in the opening half.
So some debating traditionalists would push back on you and say, no, we should think about openings and closings as substantially different things. You'd abandon those norms within debating, wouldn't you?
No. So here's the thing. You have a job at opening government to set up the debate.
Yes.
And if you fail to set up the debate, you'll probably lose. What I'd encourage opening government teams to do is to set up the debate through the lens of the material, which they should consider as if it was an extension for the purpose of analysing and establishing those facts, i.e., here are all the relevant stakeholders, environment, big debate we're having, but gear and shape all of that analysis and all that setup through your view of what is most important in the debate, and think about it, at least internally, as if that is extension material for the purpose of remaining relevant for the whole debate. That is what I would encourage.
So if you're running a broad opening government case, it's like, I like to think about it as you're actually running 3 extensions. And at each different point that might go towards a different benefit. So you have a little bit more time there. There's not nearly as much to respond to within the debate. So you have to think about how you make each point truly impactful. And especially because debating at BP is often like popcorn, right? You want to be the brightest spark or the brightest, like the loudest pop in the debate, rather than Australs, which is so much more thorough and there's nowhere to hide.
And then you want to be slathered in butter.
Yeah. What? It's popcorn. Yeah, you want to be slick. You want to be slick. You want to be salty. Oh, you're salty after the debate and you lose.
Okay.
Anything to expand on that, Grace? And difference between Australs and your approach at opening for BP?
I don't even know my approach at opening. I just...
Yeah.
Crazy cat lady from The Simpsons.
Yeah,
Have some points.
But I feel like in BP, you kind of have to do a little bit less of the work. You have to do it
so much less.
Like, the stuff that I'm weakest at in terms of, like, principally, why does this matter? And BP just gets to be like, we're focusing on this thing. We'll vaguely suggest it. Why? Here's our mechanisms. Goodbye.
Let us get it.
And obviously, ideally, you do those things that I just said I'm bad at. But, like, I just love the creativity, wackiness of BP.
Yeah.
I just love it. It's like a crazy food fight.
Yeah. For me, I think the difference is what we were talking about earlier in terms of there not being anywhere to hide in Australs. I think in Australs, you need to think through things so much more. But equally,
unless it's like Death by 1,000 Knives, you have so much time, and things just picked and picked and picked at.
Equally at BP, you'll do quite well if other teams are responding to you, or engaging with your material or trying to defeat you. So I often take a slightly broader approach to BP than I would in Australs, where, so say I'm seeking second, a first speaker will deliver like a fairly comprehensive case, and then I'll run a lot of extra materials, a lot of extra responses, a lot of extra characterization. And if you look at some of the old, very successful BP teams, like MDG and Ashish, it was like 2 prime minister speeches. When we didn't, like Zach and I didn't go nearly that far in that their second speech was just like another prime minister speech with almost entirely different material, hugely burning the debate.
Yeah.
Oh,
so no longer that.
I love a second substantive at
Oh god,
deputy.
No, it's actually awful. It actually just makes me feel physically unwell. Like, it's disgusting. It might feel.
It's It doesn't
Goes
have to be
against-
new material. I don't think it should be a
Oh.
new substantive. But if you've done a whole bunch of new mechanisms
Yeah.
Oh, I know,
for your
but
case, it's pretty good.
like,
I like to squash the earth.
running additional mechs.
yeah, you
but
should. You should
running
not
a
try. You
set-
should try to win on the exact same.
No,
planet.
but I think there's something else going on here. Because sometimes DLOs or DPMs do kind of what Daniel was talking about, where they run basically
Ashish,
they run a whole
MVG
new case.
Yeah, no,
that's
disagree
that's,
with that.
that's an
And it makes-
advanced move. You need a license for that one.
It makes me feel physically unwell.
new
Like,
mechanisms, though, you should dump.
oh yeah,
new
yeah, new
mechanisms.
mechs.
Once you've
obviously.
been best speaker of worlds, then you can adopt that approach. Let's
Yeah.
leave
How
I
that.
think it's the most bad faith bullshit thing to do in debating. It's like you have a case, here's your case, run it well. Not like we're gonna soak up fucking everything like a sponge.
Look, if you take the one.
Oh, isn't it frightful though?
We're getting on to BP debate in far too much. Do we have any questions, Joe?
Yeah, we did
Via
a
your
question.
handy question machine.
Yeah,
On
yeah,
case
yeah.
construction.
Oh, that's a shit question. It's anonymous, and I'm not reading it out, so they won't know. That one I think is shit. Like, how do we answer that?
During the debate.
I think I don't want to. Do you think there is a fundamental difference in prepping cases and different types of motions, e.g., actors' regrets? Big fat no.
Yeah. No, well, obviously the conclusions you draw will be like you'll use different strategies. But you should be guided by the same process. You should think about what the comparison is, what your comparative is. You should try and construct your framework or your win conditions. And those two things will be influenced by the type of motion. Like a regrets motion is different to other like more normative motions, or like there's lots of ways in which a motion can be phrased. But you just have to figure out what it is, the two things you're comparing, and then you have to figure out how do you win. What's your framework?
And I think there are some debates where the debate is clearly going to be about mechanisms and about analysis that's really, really beefy. So on the prep room, it's like, what are the many different ways this works, why it works, and how it works. Like some debates just involve more of that. And that's just true, I think.
You just got to be. I mean,
Yeah,
Like-
just got to flow with the debate.
Like I think the cartel debate at Worlds was exciting because it wasn't about, oh, principally should the Mexican government do this, which I don't know, I'm an outcomes person. Like it was like mechanistically what will happen, and the whole debate was just like, why do we think this thing will happen? Why won't it happen? How will it happen? What's the result? And that was enjoyable, and it meant prep was really focused on what do you think would happen.
Or can I just kind of make a comment here
Mhm.
that one of the chats I'm in is asking for a live show where you cut my hair?
Oh, sick! We can do it on the live show next.
Probably on
we can
Saturday.
do it on Saturday.
So-
Very happy to cut it on Saturday.
And if it goes badly, the live stream will just be mysteriously cut. So, oh,
We are
connection
experiencing
issue.
technical difficulties.
Can I just ripple something you were saying, Grace? How many principal points from non-New Zealand teams did we have to judge at Cinnamon Scroll? I judged so many principal points.
And they suck.
No, to be fair, some of them sucked, and I made that clear in my feedback. Some of them were useful in terms of framing the debate or pushing things forward in the same way that we agreed, like, certain types of principal points for specific reasons can be okay, because you have to tell me what's important within a debate.
I had a principal point from a team over the weekend. It was literally like, we should care about justice and fairness. And then the hottest thing in my life turned up when the first MEG team was just like, so yeah, we should care about good things. The debate then becomes about whether we're able to achieve good things on either side of the house. So let's just collapse to that. And I was just like, this is erotic, thank God. In 10 to 20 seconds, a MEG team has just distilled my entire judging philosophy. Yeah, great.
Yeah, so if they're saying what we should consider a good thing, I think that's helpful. If you're just asserting that some amorphous thing. And one thing I noticed heaps, and I'll push back against this, I don't think anyone should do this. There's a lot of debating by analogy that happens principally, like X thing is like X other thing that fits within the same category, therefore to be consistent, X other thing needs to happen. I'm very rarely convinced by that type of analysis, unless it's like we do this thing for these reasons, the same reasons apply to this thing, therefore we should have a follow through there. Be very careful when you're saying that something should be like something else because it is like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like rather than being like, oh, well, this fits these existing set of rules that we use, therefore we should consider it to be Z. Be like, well, this fits these sets of rules, which are good and beneficial for these reasons.
Yeah, and it's often
XYZ.
legal debates. I'll just point it out.
Yeah,
People do it
legal.
all the time, and they're like, this fits like this fits the definition of X. Like this fits the definition of a tort or a definition of a contract. We don't care about definitions. We don't care about consistency unless you are able to articulate why consistency is something that we should care about. And maybe this is just a New Zealand judging focused things, but you need to do that legwork if you want to run
Also,
that type of principled
stop
material.
assuming your judges do law.
Yeah, I mean I think that's.
Oh
always
my
good
god, I
advice.
had a lot of that over the weekend.
I mean, I do.
Yeah, but
Not just law, lots of different things. So, for example, maybe I'm an idiot and have 3 brain cells, but I don't know what the word probative means. I have literally no idea.
It means. Do you want a definition?
Sure,
Yeah.
I assume it has something to do with evidence.
Yeah, well, a probative means, so you've got relevance, and then you've got materiality, and you've got probativeness. Materiality is like, is it concerning something that is of question, so does it help answer the question? Probity is how much it helps answer that question. It's a specific evidence.
Why,
though,
as a
yeah.
non-law student,
You
would
wouldn't
I
know
know that?
No.
So then why did an entire team of debaters just keep dumping this term on me, speech after speech, along with a lot of other legal jargon? Like, I don't think I'm an idiot,
No.
because I'm not an idiot. And I read widely, and I know a lot about the world. But fuck, is there a lot of jargon that's tossed out in debating?
Mhm.
Frankly, mostly by overseas teams. I think
I
we're
think
better
we
at it in New
use,
Zealand.
yeah, maybe we use our O's.
I contest that.
Yeah.
I think it's equally bad.
Okay, well, can we all
yeah.
agree to use less jargon in
Yeah,
debate?
and also specific, like, so obviously law is a big one. Often it's economics and finance as well. Like,
Oh yeah.
there's become a big
explain
trend of setting finance motions, and I think they're fine actually. I think we should think about finance
Like
and consider
what?
that.
finance.
Just explain your terms. you
Like
don't know
buy-in,
judges.
buyout debates. When teams
Oh,
dump
it's
like
not a
heaps
finance.
of.
It's I'll go to
Sorry. Maybe other. No, but obviously
to be fair,
diluting specific.
the short selling
Sorry, yeah,
debate.
that's a good
The
example.
short selling debate was
Maybe that was the one I was thinking of, or like the one that's like about just explain things
your
in
terms.
simple English. Like
Unless it is about protein changes in the rat heart during diabetes, I'm not going to get it.
yeah. I felt really lucky to judge the short selling debate because I actually understood what hedging strategies were, and I was lucky to be in a room at Australs last year where both teams understood finance. So it was a fun time all round because everyone understood what they were talking about, and I understood what they were talking about.
Yeah.
I suspect someone else would have absolutely no fucking
So, okay, I want to. Do we have another anonymous
Do we-
question? I have another
What
question I
would you
wanted to throw out to you all.
Case
well, let's check
construction
with
keys.
the people first.
Have any put people here?
They're being sent through. I think.
Oh, I
Watch
see.
out! You don't click out of it.
Oh.
We haven't had another anonymous question, so Daniel, do you want to have some reckon?
I got on second speeches. Something about bleaching Joe's hair.
Oh yeah, I didn't post John's follow up to his records
Oh.
because I feel like we should only get like 2 John paragraphs per show.
I'd be happy to hear John's extra reckon.
Should we hear
I
some
think
extra reckon?
he and I probably disagree the most.
Okay. Winning is a very dangerous way to develop speakers, mainly because it's
fair.
meaningless. You win by, as a team, developing a line of debating. Each speaker serves a role, and that role is to advance their debate. If speakers say the same thing third speakers say, or vice versa, someone hasn't achieved this. That's why speaker roles and role fulfillment exist. Okay, I don't think we necessarily disagree here. I don't think we disagree at all. Each speaker in the debate has an obligation to develop the debate in a way which is meaningful and separates them out from the other speakers, and that means that we have developed speaker roles in order to fulfill that obligation.
Yeah. So where I'd slightly disagree is I think maybe some people would be, and coming from that comment, thinking that the second speaker should say the same things as the third speaker. I don't think that's true because obviously more has happened in the debate. But obviously even within the same areas, you're taking it down layers of nuance, you're adding layers of development, you're responding to new things, there are different attacks being thrown by later speakers that the third speakers have to respond to and rebuttress. And so I think that and this is actually something I get a lot in my development live sessions. I don't think there's a big difference between substantive and rebuttal. I think both are about articulating a view of the world and explaining why your view of the world is better than the view of the world of someone else. And there's what you should be doing is rather thinking, oh, I'm rebutting, or oh, I'm doing substantive. It's I'm adding nuances that mean my world is more compelling than their world. And I think so. I would, but also what I tease out there is teaching people how to debate is different to you're a good debater who is like trying to win debating. I wholeheartedly agree with the comments that were made earlier about like if you're a younger speaker, make sure you know how to do the basics well. Innovate, have fun, but really focus on those basics and get them down.
Speaking of younger speakers, I have a phone call with some younger speakers at 6 o'clock. So I'm wondering if we start to tie up.
I'll ask one last question.
Can I?
Yeah, sorry, after you.
Oh no, I was going to give some low IQ tips for case construction.
Yeah, can you? Well, so should we chat about my thing and then do low IQ tips?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and this is something that I think we as a flat need to talk about anyway. How do you mediate disagreement within the prep room over cases?
Do we?
No, over different ideas of what the case should be. All three of us.
Oh, I thought there was like Joe
no.
didn't do the dishes, and I was like, ruh-roh.
No, more how to. So obviously, like, and I think we've actually had a chat about it. All three of us have very strong views on debating, and we'll have very strong views if and when we debate together. One thing how do you find that balance within a team between?
I'm going to answer this now. I have strong views on debating. I don't always have very strong views on case construction, or I try not to. Sometimes I do. That's why Nick and I argued. Much love, Nick. We sorted that out. I'm good at filling in lines. I'm good at coming up with mechanisms. I'm good at coming up with analysis. I am bad at deciding what the picture outline
Which is
should be.
why it worked when we went to NZBP last year.
Yes.
Because in general,
So
we set the direction and then it kind of worked.
Yeah. So I think one of the best ways to settle disagreements is just shut up and take a back seat if the other person knows better.
Yeah.
And if you genuinely think they don't, then you need to have a frank discussion about that. But sometimes
So my NZBP final, in the debate about feminism, I was like, right, Greg, what are we doing?
Yeah. And what I think is nice is I think case construction should be considered more of a collaborative thing than I think sometimes teams get at, in that it's not just about whether or not X debate is more suited, but X nuance that each speaker will know more about, or each aspect of the debate. And people need to be way more comfortable taking their initial thoughts and pooling them together and trying to find cohesion in them, rather than being like, this vision is the thing that needs to go forward. And trying to come up with that collective vision, because some of the stuff that has happened in debates that I've done is where I'll be like, okay, we've got a very solid case, we talk through the case, we run the case, and then they try to take something in another direction that we had just collectively agreed not to do.
I'm happy to pull a vision, but I prefer to just be in charge of writing the mix for that vision. So, which I think I was quite lucky at Auckland IV, John probably let me away with a little bit, in that we would generally kind of build some kind of case vision together about where we wanted to go. And then I'd be like, right, let me write the mix now. And he'd be constructive during that, but would broadly let me get on with it, which worked well. I think, Grace, you were probably the same, right? Like, we'd have some kind of initial discussion about where we were going. If you were like, Joe, I don't know where we're going, I'd be like, this is where we're going. And then we'd add stuff after that.
I think it takes emotional maturity. I think there's probably a reason that the best debaters tend to do best later in their careers. And I think it's that the emotional maturity and the intellectual maturity work quite well together, and that's improved. Yeah.
Because there are just many good teams that have imploded because... Yeah. And often it's like, one thing I would say, and this is something I've tried to get along more, is if you are driving case construction and someone floats an idea, don't dismiss the idea, explain why it's wrong. Because there's nothing more frustrating than something that had been agreed not to run, that the later speaker then decides to pull out and be like, oh, I've got time in my speech, here's my cool idea, that's in tension with stuff you've previously run, or is flawed in some way that you appreciated but didn't take the time to explain it to them. If someone seems attached to an idea, you need to give it airtime and prep, otherwise they could go rogue, and it's just...
But also don't be a wanker and pull out random stuff.
Yeah, don't do that, but sometimes people do.
Is there a question, or can I give random comments?
Big random tips?
Only low IQ ones, though.
Okay, my low IQ tips are, you know how at the start of your speech you're signposting, you're like, I'm going to cover these 3 points. Pick those words for those points at the start. So, like, on your bit of paper, it'd be like, why cats matter. And that's literally the 3 words you use in your signposting. I think so often speakers are like, oh, this is my point about cats. And then they ad-lib their signposting. you want to work out a way to title that point in very few words. And I think it's helpful a lot of the time to do that in prep. I do it for second substantive, so that when you go up to speak, you have a concise, comprehensible title for that point.
Yeah.
Signposting, I've seen signposting that takes like 45 seconds. Like, fuck that. Concise.
Yeah.
Sorry, could I add something to that?
Yes. Only if it's low IQ.
It is low IQ.
Okay.
Make sure, sorry, you may have already covered this. I was dealing with a potential caller that we might have, just very briefly. Make sure that your point title isn't the area of the point, it's what you want them to take out of the point. So your point title shouldn't be cats, your point title should be cats are X, or like...
At first.
Yeah, and very much
second,
at first. Sorry.
At second,
This is first
second
advice.
and third, if that's clear, then you know. But
Yeah.
The other low IQ point is, and this may not work for all people, but try and have different ideas on different bits of paper. You have a little bit of room for like rebuttal or extra commentary that springs up. I know this sounds really dumb, but if you have a different piece of paper for each point that you've prepped your case on, then you can go on the debate and you can make those little edits and all your ideas are clean. I feel like that's very obvious, but not everyone does it.
Should we tie up?
Yeah.
6 o'clock.
Sorry, just going to have a wee chat to someone who wanted to call in very briefly.
Do you need to zoom away?
Probably so.
Do you want to make an announcement? It's just Umber.
Oh, what's number one?
Just to say hello, and I'm so excited to hear from her. Hi!
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
It's a delight to hear your voice.
Do you have news for us?
Oh my god, I do have news. So, the nice thing about being president is I can just use this show to, like, share my personal news. I'm currently in the process of bleaching my hair.
Outstanding.
My head's, like, wrapped in a plastic bag, there's bleach in it. It might all fall out. Who knows? Super excited.
Did you buy like hair bleach, or have you just got like a big bottle of peroxide?
Oh, it's like proper hair bleach. So, well, like, proper from the supermarket. So, not, like, best quality, but not quite, like, the worst. So...
I don't think your hair's going to fall out then. I'm feeling optimistic for you.
Yeah, it should be fine. I've only bleached like half of it, and then I'm going to dye it hot pink as soon as that's done.
Which
and then I
half?
can just chop it off after if I want to. So it's pretty exciting.
Which half of your hair?
The bottom half. Easier to cut off that way. But you know, if you're coming to an online club night or an online tournament anytime soon, you can check out my hot pink bleached messy
Beautiful.
hair. That might be pretty cool.
So I think
Amazing.
if we end up bleaching Joe's hair, he'd look a lot like that, instant noodle era Justin Timberlake, which would be
Oh my
very
God, you
fun.
would absolutely give Joe frosted tips. I think that's a yes.
That's what happens when
you know, I can send my bleach to you, and then it can be a gift from
Sick.
yourself.
And I don't think COVID could probably live in bleach, so we'll be safe.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I think we have to phase out now. So if you have any last thoughts on that?
Come to club night, come to Auckland Novice, sign up for all the fun things. Online debating is awesome, and leave feedback on this live show.
Yeah, feedback on the live show. Also, specifically, no club night in the next few weeks, but we do have Auckland Novice, so come along to Auckland Novice. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Amazing. Bye.
Any final thoughts from the friends?
No, I've got no more thoughts. I'm onto my way.
Tournament's just gone live. So from 2nd to 3rd of May, there's going to be an IV called Jurassic IV. The Edge Core team is me, John, Siobhan, Tamara, and Oscar. It's going to be heaps of fun. We're going to be putting a form up tonight if you're interested in judging the tournament, and that form will be live for the next 48 to 72 hours, and then that will give us the information to set a team cap and get information
What
about.
format is this tournament in?
So it's an Australs format tournament, so it's 3-on-3, no POIs.
8 minutes, yeah.
8 minutes. We are encouraging, although today we don't have a formal tool to encourage this pro-am teams. We think it'd be fantastic to see a lot of pro-am teams. And subject to novice availability, we'll have a novice final like we did at Cinnamon Scroll. And subject to team availability, we'll break to semis and then have a final.
Nice.
Right, I've already started my waving.
So check that out online now. Thanks.
I don't know how to end this new one.
How about the red button that says end live
Big
video?
red button.